The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode.
The summer of 2004 at 20.
Welcome back to the Brandon Peters Show and another installment of the Summer of 2004 at 20 series, a week by week look at the films released that summer and the pop culture that surrounded them. As always, joining me from Puck and the Outside Scoop, which this week is running a special chocolate ice cream cone dipped in white chocolate syrup, Scott Mendelson.
Seems redundant, but delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Always a pleasure.
The white chicks dig it. And from We Live Entertainment and host of Out Now with Aaron and Abe, you say two brothers, he prefers four of them, Aaron Neuwirth.
Yeah, that's this many. Sure. Yeah. Hi.
All right. Okay, guys, we are here wrapping up June 2004 with four more movies. The halfway point of our series, 8 episodes deep. So what have we thought halfway through here on this month and the 2 months as a whole getting up to here?
I think the overall theme, and this really goes to at least one movie we're talking about, is how depressing it is to watch these films that we kind of stupidly hoped might make a positive social difference 20 years ago, only to realize that no, nothing mattered. Nothing changed. Everything got worse. We're all fucked.
And they feel eerily relevant watching them 20 years later.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. There's this kind of knock on the back of the head that's like, oh, this seems important. I wonder if that's going to make an impact. At the same time, the thing I've been admiring is the amount of diversity within the kinds of movies that we've been watching week after week.
Mm-hmm.
Good or bad, there's a healthy mix of things.
This week is a wild variety,
which is not unlike '93, honestly.
Yeah,
I'll be curious when we get to the potential summer of 2015 at 10 if that's going to hold suit, because there's certainly a lot of movies, but I'm curious how
that might be the last summer that it would, to be honest.
Yeah. I feel like this has had a lot of good Scott says singles and doubles type movies in terms of quality, but like the big swings are in terms of like hopeful potential franchise starter blockbuster hits have been like less than 50-50, I would say. Much less. Those aren't half. They do. They
I'm gonna say there's ones I know are coming.
Well, I'm talking about the first 2 months here, but
there's a reason Shrek 2 legged it like a motherfucker.
Yeah, you can easily see there's nothing going on there, and
I'm not getting ahead of I was just saying I'm looking at this being like, there's movies I like a lot, but yeah, it's pretty level, but I know that there's an upswing coming, at least in films that I know I certainly like. So I'll be curious.
Yeah, it's crazy what gets held off till like the very end, and I'm like, man, you could have had a run earlier. But these were like, they're probably movies that people feared a little bit that were nothing to fear towards the end. Probably dates already set, but yeah,
we'll talk about this. But there's one that I'm certainly curious about, like when that choice was made to release it then, as opposed to a different time based on what it did. But we'll get there.
Yeah, true.
Now I'm curious.
Yeah. Stay tuned. But for right now, let's begin with the news.
And I found a reason for you. And the reason is news.
Well, it's going to probably make its rounds around to our stores, and we're going to share it with the public. Everybody's going to be able to see Blackie and get to experience it, and the other guitars that we got as well.
I know Eric's very sad, but at the same time, he's done a tremendous thing, to put, his life's playing almost into 2 separate auctions.
Which we have some news stories this week.
Good. It was pretty bland last week.
One story.
Whoppers.
Yeah. So on June 21st, because this week we are talking the week that was a weekend that was June 25th through 27th. So this week, June 21st, Spaceship One becomes the first privately funded space plane to achieve space flight. So private space stuff. So One day we'll put billionaires in space.
as it
And
should
leave
be,
them there.
as it also should be.
Yeah. On June 23rd, Bob Dylan accepted an honorary doctorate of music degree from the University of St. Andrews, Scotland's oldest university.
Got a BD degree.
He's in his speech, he said, thank you.
And the Scottish understood every word.
They
of it.
were like, oh, I didn't know he was a Scotsman. On June 24th, in the state of New York, in something that deeply upset Scott, capital punishment was declared unconstitutional.
Yeah, I wept.
And because of that, on the same day, a Christie's auction house in New York conducts the sale of 80 of Eric Clapton and Friends guitars to benefit Crossroads Center at Antigua, a drug and alcohol residential rehabilitation facility he co-funded in 1997, raising over $5 million. Blackie, which was a 1956 to 57 composite Fender Stratocaster used as his primary instrument form from the mid 70s until 1985, sold for a then record $959,500. Couldn't quite get it up to $1 million. And someone who made more money than that on that same day, the 2004 NBA draft, the number one pick from Southwest Atlanta Christian Academy, power forward Dwight Howard, picked by the Orlando Magic.
Hey.
Boom, shakalaka.
He went on to a big career with Orlando. Then he went to the Los Angeles Lakers, where they called that year Dwightmere because he did not live up to potential. He then
That's
went
a
to
stretch.
he then left to Houston, spotted around the league, wound up on the Lakers again when they won the championship in the bubble. So he did win a championship for the Lakers, just many years down the road.
I would paraphrase a music group that will be in the headlines, if not now, then if not already. Taking the long way around.
I was just watching the slam dunk contest, and it reminded me of Dwight Howard doing two of my favorite slam dunks of all time.
Yeah, he did too. He did do a back to back, and him and Nate Robinson, who was the little guy, they had one year they went against each other. Pretty cool. On June 25th, the Glastonbury Festival in Pilton, England opened. Oasis, Paul McCartney, and Muse headlined it, and other performers included Wilco, those Black Eyed Peas we could not get enough of.
Get started.
James Brown. That's exactly what those words were. James Brown, Damian Rice, Toots and Maytals, and the Roodles. Talk about a clean version of a song that you begged for back around this. No, it was this year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was 2004. Like, because they probably
Garfield reminded us of all the Black Eyed Peas.
Yes, because that "Let's Get It Started" song was used for the NBA playoffs that year, and I was like, wait, that's not what the lyrics are. But Black Eyed Peas will damn well tell you now those are the lyrics for sure.
They have both tracks on that album. There is
okay.
For the end of that album is the remix, the radio friendly version of that song.
Yeah. Oh, Black Eyed Peas went woke there. Changed the song back in 2004.
That was going to be a good night for them.
Yeah. There you go. All right. People who left us this week, our deaths, Bob Beamer, a computer scientist, poet Matty Stepanek, astrophysicist Thomas Gold, jazz double bassist Jimmy Rouser, composer and conductor Eskel Hemberg, singer-songwriter Naomi Schiemer, film producer Yashio Har, race car driver Daryl Russell, and General George Patton the Fourth.
He was also a general?
He was also a general.
Good on them. The Pattons.
The Pattons.
One of my favorite 90s sitcoms.
Oh, okay. So we will move on to our first film this week. 4 wide releases. Just no little indie thrown in there. No little theaters.
Get that trash out of our eyes and let's talk about some real movies.
We'll be talking our first 2 brothers
For Kumal and Sangha, the jungle was the only home they'd ever known. Until the day...
What are you doing here?
...they were taken from their family. On June 25th, experience their incredible journey home.
They're just trying to find their way back.
Two Brothers, rated PG, starts June 25th.
Directed by Jean-Jacques Annaud, written by Alan Godard, Jean-Jacques Annaud, on an original idea by Annaud with English dialogue by Julian Fellows, starring Guy Pearce, Jean-Claude Dreyfus, Freddie Highmore as Raoul, Owen Wen, Philippine Leroy Bailu, Musa Mascari, and Vincent Scarito. This one's about two tigers that are separated as cubs and taken into captivity, only to be reunited years later as enemies by an explorer who inadvertently forces them to fight each other in mortal combat.
Great.
Raoul.
Guy
God.
Pearce.
Simba.
So this movie, I forgot fucking existed till now. Like
Same.
when I saw what this was, I saw the poster. I was like, it's not ringing a bell. Then I started the movie. I'm like, that's this movie. Okay. I remember seeing some stuff for this. I remember the DVD case. Okay. All right. So Scott, tell us about Two Brothers.
I had not seen this one before, but I did vaguely remember it in terms of, seeing the previews and what have you. On one hand, it looks lovely. It's a lusciously photographed picture with lots of quote unquote real locations and all that jazz. As a film for kids back at a time when there was still a certain amount of separation between this is for kids and this is for adults, and never the twain shall meet except for certain all-quadrant blockbusters. It is good. Honestly, the only real issue I had with it is that it's the same issue I have with a lot of the Disney nature documentaries, is that it often does the thing where it's like it tries to tell the story of animals through the prism of human emotion and human motivations and human experience. And on one hand, I don't expect a film like this to be, filled with gore and peril and horrific animals eating other animals and all that jazz. But there's a certain amount of sanitation that I think it's prevents it from being perhaps great.
Tigers.
What was that?
Tony the Tiger. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm explaining.
Yes. Those are the jokes.
I'm waiting for his third and all that jazz. That's what I'm waiting for.
But when we do these summer recaps or whatever, it's like films of a bygone era, blah blah blah. And yeah, this is back when a film with what I would seem to be a pretty decent sized budget. This does not look like a cheap picture that would seem to exist in a vacuum.
When you buy one tiger, you get one for free. That's a code.
Never mind that. Though I have to admit, I was slightly disappointed to realize that Guy Pearce was not playing the tiger. But
nowadays that would be Freddie Highmore's role.
No Idris Elba
in the Legacy sequel. Two tigers. Like, I don't fucking. Who cares?
Has Tremblay voiced a tiger yet? I'm sure it's
Has he?
something. Yeah.
No.
But in a vacuum, I thought it was a relatively entertaining, well acted, relatively visually dynamic kids film that has a certain amount of incorporate these animals into our fictional narrative in a way that I imagine is a lot more challenging because they're fucking animals that I should not take for granted. But it also felt like there is a version of this film that's a little bit more honest, that probably would have been more compelling. And on one hand, I don't want to be too much of a dick about this, because again, it's a film for kids about, basically it's a live action version of Spirit, Legend of the Cimarron with tigers.
Mm-hmm.
But, I also know there are better kids films out there that even from a human point of view, like last summer we talked about Free Willy, which just knocked my butt off in terms of how emotionally authentic that picture was, despite being, a boy in his whale story.
Mhm.
So on a curve, it's fine, but whatever. I admired how it was made and its existence more than finding it particularly compelling.
Gotcha. Aaron.
Well, in the realm of Tremblay voicing animals, not a tiger, but we all know the ones he has. He was a sea monster and flounder, both of which are sea monsters. It's a trick question.
Flounder is
Tremblay?
Flounder's the tiger of the sea, you know?
Wait, Tremblay? I thought we were talking about Freddie.
No, but you mentioned Tremblay, and so I was just making sure.
I was trying to say Highmore was the Tremblay of his day.
Oh,
yeah.
Tremblay, the guy that beat up and abused Rebecca
Tremblay is
Ferguson
our
on the set.
greatest actor.
Yes.
Tremblay is still waiting for his Spiderwick Chronicles.
Yeah.
He's one of our greatest actors. So Freddie Highmore, he's a good doctor, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Do you mean hashtag the Norman Bates?
the only one in my book. As far as this film goes,
I just like Tremblay because he gave Ferguson what she deserved.
Yeah,
yeah.
Two black guys.
The stuff that's like we're in June now, and people are like, "What's
that's
he
going to be
talking
more
about?"
relevant than ever. I guarantee it.
Craig Ferguson, was he on that show?
As far as this movie goes, I mean, if you want to line it up against Disney nature movies, this is no African Cats. I'll tell you that right now.
None of them. The others aren't.
You think so? Because that movie is legit great.
Yeah.
When you get,
I told you the anecdote about that one, right?
The box office is crazy on that. Like, there's like a per theater average or something that's insane.
I took my Allison, and she was 4-ish. I mean, so it was like, is she going to be bothered by the animal violence? Is she going to be bothered by the animal violence? You get to the end, one of the animals eats like a antelope, and she literally sits up in the theater and goes, "Yay, tasty zebra!"
There you go.
All right.
So
that's why she's his favorite.
Yes. Oh shit, we recording?
Which
it is going up all over social media.
Whenever he's on the phone with me, he's always making sure that I know he's his favorite.
Mendelson chooses between 3 children. You won't guess who's number 1.
With this movie, I mean, Scott, you're mentioning like how it could have been more, I don't know, brave to do certain things. That's what Anad did with The Bear in '81. I mean, that's a braver movie. It's, I'm not gonna say like daring, but it certainly has a less sanitized feel to it. This movie is fine-ish. It's the kind of thing I did remember this. I have a stupid, really good memory when it comes to these kinds of things. So it's like, yeah, I remember this, and I remember not seeing it, but I was like, oh, Guy Pearce in like a tiger movie. Pass. But like now
it's no time machine.
Few things are.
Fortunately.
But so now I've finally seen this movie after 20 years of being like, so, and it's like, yeah, it's well filmed, I guess. Like it does the job. The tiger stuff is good because tigers, they're doing tiger stuff. And yes, it is very clean. There's beyond like filmmaking approaches, there's no ambition here. I'm not against the idea of having a fairly kid-friendly movie like this, although I think kids would be bored, honestly, because the human stuff is not good. I mean, it's not particularly compelling to watch any number of things involving the subplots, whether like it's trying to be like, I don't know, like a Call of the Wild type model, as far as there's multiple different human strands that we follow as we keep bouncing around with these tigers. And like I admire that approach. It's just like it's not particularly fun to watch. I mean, it's cute for a while because the tigers, but every time we go to like human drama, it's no Warhorse. Speaking of Spielberg, I mean, it's not.
Now that's a movie that's great.
Yeah. When they all eat cereal at the end when they get the horse back, it's pretty compelling. This movie, though, not as compelling as I would have liked. I mean, it just kind of sits there, and it's like, all right, we're doing the thing. We got the tigers. What else you got?
Mm-hmm.
Guy Pearce is there doing, nice work, I guess. Is like, I'll mix it up a little bit, do something like this. But I mean, no, it's not. Ultimately, it didn't really feel like anything special. So I don't feel like I missed much in the 20 years that I was waiting to watch this movie.
I love this movie. You guys are crazy. What? Um, no, this is fine. I'll tell you the perfect thing for like this movie is like with theatrical wise, it's a family movie. It's like, okay, we saw Shrek 2 like 3 times already. What? Oh gosh. Around the World in 80 Days that came out last week's only playing like once a day. And what time? Now we can't make that. It's a fucking tiger
That's
movie.
the reason we're not seeing Around the World in 80 Days, because it's not enough show times. That's
Yep.
why.
Yep. Oh, it's there. So it's a family film option, and it's the type of movie that you just know, like for like elementary school or school stuff, it's like okay to show. That feels a little better to show in school.
Wheel
You
in
know,
the
like
TV and
wheel in the
VCR on the cart.
TV. We're watching. What do we got? Two brothers, folks. You know, the one you avoided at the theater, you're gonna see it now in school because we have a substitute teacher, rainy day, free day, something like that. I will say there's a thing to this that harkens to a different era that we don't really get a lot of now, is the magic of animal footage, animal acting, animal stunts. We do have a lot of Nat Geo stuff
lived in the
now.
flesh?
Thanks.
Oh.
Huh? Yeah.
You
Nothing.
froze.
I did. Well, I would say we have a thing that harkens back to a bygone era is the magic of animal footage, animal acting, animal stunts that it gets CG'd now. And there's an authenticity to this that holds up that I just kind of liked. It's not a long movie, but it feels very long.
It does.
Some of it, like, I wasn't quite getting what was going on or why, or and it's not that complex of a movie, but I'm one thing would be like, I have been a long time Guy Pearce fan. Like, I like this. I think he's great. I almost feel like he never took off as a star. He got a lot of leads, but yeah, was he just too good of an actor to be a star? Like, cause
he picked he made the wrong bets.
made the wrong bet. Like, cause around
you went for Time Machine, flop. I mean,
Yeah.
like, and an actor like that, when there's a lot of, handsome white actors, let alone ones from Australia.
Well, I feel like
You always only so many chances that you get.
He does Time Machine, but like I feel like he's choosing like based on parts rather than exposure.
Yeah, that's part of it, because he's also he's
because
not.
he had Monte Cristo, which was quite popular.
But that's like a January release, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like,
He was trying to be a real thespian, which is why.
Yeah, like I feel like he's going the Daniel Day-Lewis route, but then somewhere gets lost in like he's a weird career he's not getting nominated for Oscars. He's not, but
he's a character guy. Like you can tell in the types of performances he's giving that he is a guy that likes to focus on getting into. He's not a matinee star. Like, he can make those choices, but like he's very particular about them, and the ones that he actually did choose to do didn't really take him much further.
Right.
And look at him; he's not a big guy. He's not a burlier kind of. He's not Russell Crowe, who's has a certain kind of handsomeness that I think attracts a certain type of actor. Like, it's
at this time in 2003, 2004, when it's Christopher Nolan is making a new Batman movie. He was my choice to play Batman. I was like, oh, he'd be fantastic. They've worked together in Memento. He's got the chops, I feel like, that could do the Bruce Wayne and the Batman stuff. I mean, it's right there in Memento even, but that just...
I always thought he'd be a great Harvey Dent. Like that.
He'd be he'd be great there.
We probably talked about that exact thing on the
Liev Schreiber was my Harvey Dent. Liev Schreiber was my Harvey Dent.
Again, you see Manchurian Candidate, which we will see.
Yeah,
that's why I thought of him as Harvey Dent, but in retrospect, it's like it almost would have been too obvious that he would be tortured the entire time.
But I also
argue about Aaron Eckhart, but he works as the happy-go-lucky Harvey Dent.
But there's also a lot of actors that Christian Bale is very much like Guy Pearce at that point. Not similar career. Oh no, they both have like weird character roles, and they're like out there, but not like super huge. It's just that's just luck of the draw, honestly.
Yeah,
I'd like to think. I mean, he's still working relatively steadily. 20 years.
He works on constantly.
It's not like he's not getting
work.
money enough to work when he wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt that he's not like happy with the amount of things. I mean, he's in $1 billion MCU movie, so if he wanted that out of his system, he got
Oh,
it.
that's right.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
he's fine. Like,
Yeah, no,
celebrated and not controversial twist whatsoever.
it's just a really interesting career of a guy that I was like, oh man, I want to see this guy in everything. Hopefully he gets big thing, and like, I mean, he's not even in like Oscar movie. He was to begin with when we first met him in LA Confidential, but it's a real weird career of like, yes, he does. He was in the main villain in Iron Man 3, but like, it's a lot of like the king of in between character actor and in between pictures. Like it's a weird thing.
But it gives him sort of like a Clive Owen thing where it's like he never became a superstar, but he's had a really interesting eclectic career.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
What was
I will say this though. With me at that time, I'm like, this guy was in LA Confidential, Ravenous, and Memento.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically topping my list of like guys I want to see and stuff.
And
I agree.
The Proposition is the next year, right?
The Proposition's coming pretty quick. Yeah, that's 2006.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's like, you remember how like people were that the film nerds were really hot on Robert Carlyle for a while there in the late 90s and stuff like, oh, Robert Carlyle. And that was where I was at probably with Guy Pearce. Like I was really following that career along.
And it was in Ravenous, and I was like, what's happening?
Yeah,
here?
they just was passing.
That's the one guy that was loving Ravenous in 1999 when it came out.
Right.
One thing I want to pick up on something you said about the authenticity, and I agree with you. I appreciate animal specific films where I can believe my eyes, when I can believe that what I'm seeing is real, and that's why I love Milo and Otis.
Especially the backstory in making that movie.
Don't explain the joke, Aaron.
I will say, in regards to this movie, if you want to talk about the animal stuff, yes, today would be obviously augmented by a CG, or at least for like a bigger movie would be, perhaps not a smaller film. But I do feel like I saw some of the scenes in this one also, which is also why it kind of threw me off, where there are tigers, and they certainly have them doing stuff, and it's admirable. But I did feel like I could see the seams as far as like, there's some trickery happening here.
Safety, and also,
in enough ways that it affected my watching the movie, where I'm like, I shouldn't be able to point this stuff out as clearly as I feel I'm able to.
Yeah.
In a movie where you can't see the seams, where it feels authentic the entire time, The Adventures of Milo and Otis.
Because I think Anand's a good enough director. And so that's why it's like, I guess like it's just the ambition and trying to do this in 2004 that's like making it difficult. But I was like, I don't know. Like,
I will say, I was reading the reviews from the time, and they were all like a lot of praise of the cinematography on this one. I was kind of like, it's okay. It's like that. Were you just trying to dig for compliments of the movie, or
there's several 2004 movies I can think of off my top of my head that I know have better cinematography than this movie.
Right. I was just
Doggo.
yeah. So yeah,
I mean that movie made me similar to fall asleep like this movie almost did. So I mean,
you know what movie didn't make me fall asleep? The Adventures of Milo and Otis.
All right,
that was a real cliffhanger, if you know what I mean.
Summer of '93.
Touche.
Yeah.
Smash that subscribe button.
Oh boy! And as you do, continue to listen to us as we. This is a bizarre week in terms of writing the script and ordering the movies, because it feels bizarre. It feels bizarre that the next film we're going to talk about today is The Notebook.
From the first time he saw her,
What are you doing tonight?
I'm busy.
Well, what can I do to change your mind?
he would love her forever.
You are 17 years old. You don't know anything about love. He's not for you.
Now he'll do anything to get her back.
I wrote you every day for a year.
You wrote me?
Yes.
I have a fiance waiting for me.
This is not about keeping your promise. It's about following your heart.
Ryan Gosling, Rachel McAdams, James Marsden, The Notebook, rated PG-13. Special sneak preview this Saturday in select theaters.
Directed by Nick Cassavetes, written by Jeremy Levin and Jan Sardi, on a novel by Nicholas Sparks, starring Rachel McAdams, Ryan Gosling, Gina Rollins, James Garner, Kevin Connolly, Heather Walquist, Sam Shepard, Big Summer of Joan Allen, David Thornton, and James Marsden. An elder. Yes. And James Marsden, always the best other guy that we're supposed to hate, but we just
And
can't
that's
help
why
but
I like 27 Dresses, because he's
yes.
finally the guy.
Yes.
Also, that's a
In a
rom-com
story,
that
in
has
a rom-com
Jude Ritter
about being
and
the
Kristen Ritter.
the rom-com about always the bridesmaid, never the bride. They got the perfect guy. An elderly man reads to a woman with dementia the story of two young lovers whose romance is threatened by the difference in their respective social classes. Now, I will say, this is the ultimate bump for Rachel McAdams. And spoiler alert, Mean Girls leaves the top 10 box office this week, and here she is. Boom! It was like the perfect step up, and here she comes. And this is probably her breakout year, and bam, right here, back at it, and showing that she can
5
lead.
movies in 2004 and 2005 that in a sane environment would have made her the next Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
And I've talked a lot about why that didn't happen, and partially because she came of age, pardon the expression, right as these kind of films were being slowly phased out.
Yeah.
And
well,
I
and
mean,
it's
she's
crazy
doing
because
fine. I mean, she's still, yada yada yada, but
movie was a huge smash, but she's in
Yeah.
The Wedding Crashers not too far after this, and it feels like you should be doing you should be the lead of these comedies, not the kind of
surprised to be
crazy.
one.
I get Isla Fisher here, but man, did they dump a dump truck of money into your lawn to get you for this, or
I mean, it's not like it didn't work out for her.
No,
yeah,
I mean,
no, and I think she's still she's not having a resurgence, but she's been able to be steady and have some nice.
Even the immediate aftermath of
Right.
Wedding. I mean, she was starting to lead movies, but I mean, she's still she's still young in 2005.
And she was great last year in the Are You There, God?
I think part of it is she breaks out in Mean Girls, Notebook, Red Eye, Wedding Crashers, and Family Stone, and it's like, holy shit, she's the next big thing. She does a few movies, and then she takes some time off. I don't remember if it's because she had a kid or what else, but she took
time off because she didn't like the options being presented.
Yeah,
and
all the better.
What do I want to do?
Unfortunately, by the time she comes back, it's already
by the time she comes back, she
2010s.
starts the $800 million Doctor Strange movie. How poor her, and gets critical and an Oscar nomination for Spotlight. Yeah, how terrible.
Eventually, but even before that, I mean, it's.
I remember. I mean, we're talking about a couple of years. I mean, what are we?
I mean, in the mid 2010s, it's the kind of films that, like The Family Stone, like The Notebook, like Mean Girls, were frankly being phased out as mainstream stuff. And I remember because I by 2015, she was basically playing the fridged wife in Jake Gyllenhaal's boxing movie, Southpaw. And yeah, I mean, in retrospect, 10 years later, it's not like, she's fine. She makes lots of interesting pictures and what have you. But I think to a certain extent, had she made these films in the 90s, she'd be a gajillionaire. And she would have, headlined a dozen major studio vehicles in the mid to late 90s.
Well, yeah, that's a different story. Yeah,
she'd have had she had the Meg Ryan, Julia Roberts thing.
At a time where
Bullock, Kidman, etc.
We're at a time when the romantic comedies are being made by Judd Apatow. I mean, so
yes,
it's
exactly.
like
the bromance, where even the that was a period where and even the animated films were becoming boy centric.
I feel like she could have fit in with those movies. Like she has the chops to spit right back at those guys.
The
I feel
closest
like
she did with that was Cameron Crowe's Aloha, which I don't hate the movie, but it's not good and it didn't do anything for anyone.
You don't have to call it a rom-com, but I mean, Game Night is her being.
Game Night was
performers that are doing the
yes.
It's just not a romance. That's the
difference. So let's get into the Notebook. Aaron,
Notebook.
Aaron, remind us what about the Notebook.
I didn't see this movie in theaters. I saw it eventually, like on DVD. And fairly late too. Like I think after the Sparks. I think before
Sparks Assance.
It was before the worst one, Safe Haven, came out. That's the one.
2013.
There's a ghost in that one. I won't tell you.
That's when I realized there was something very wrong with the internet film nerds, in which it's fine to make fun of that. That was a silly plot twist, although whatever. But the extent that it was like being discussed as like the craziest thing I've ever seen is like, no, that's not correct.
No, the problem was it was just dumb. That was with it. Not that it was extreme.
Exactly. Thank you.
But I think it was when that one was coming out, and I was on there was a web series called Just Seen It, where I'm on camera reviewing movies, and that was one of the ones I was going to do that week. And so I was like, you know what? I've never actually seen The Notebook. I should probably watch that. So I watched The Notebook. It's certainly I can see where the popularity comes from as far as McAdams and Gosling have chemistry. They are good in that movie. They do the job. Um, I don't know if it was ever going to be surprising about Gina Rollins and like her condition, like what's going on. I feel like I got that right away. I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be like you'll never guess who these people are or anything like that, whatever. But like, there's little. The problem I have with the Notebook is that there's never really much suspense to it because I see what this is doing very easily. And if this is the cream of the crop for Sparks adaptations, I don't feel like that crop is very, very, very fresh. It's like this movie I think is fine. I like it well enough. But for everything that I think is good about it, whether it's the performances or some key scenes or, you know, those key scenes hit the right way, there's also stuff that I think is like awful. Like I think some of the dialogue is terrible in this movie. I think everything E from Entourage, Kevin Connolly does is the most like rote best friend nonsense that you've ever heard in a movie. It just like throws me out of it because I'm just like so tired of like the cliches happening. He's an embodiment of that, but there's a lot of cliches in this. Now, I expect that to a degree. It's a romance. It's going to do things not unlike I expect action movies to have certain cliches in them. I'm just judging it the exact same way, where there's ones that I like more because I think they do it better. I don't think Nick Cassavetes, who has a wild career as a director, is necessarily enhancing this genre in any particular way. So all I really have to go on is the fact that I really like these crazy kids being together. And that's good enough. It makes it fine. But when you layer on the book endings or the whatever, the interstitials with Garner and Roland.
Framing device.
The framing device, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, do I not like that ending. Every time I watch this movie, I just like I get what it's going for, but it just the way it's presented to me has never worked. It's like every time it hits credits after what happens, I'm just like, there's a different movie or there's a different filmmaker that I think could make that work better for me. As it stands, just feels like it's trying to hit me in a certain way that I don't find it authentic. It's a weird issue. I don't know if that's
50 First Dates did it better. Is that what you're?
I generally say 50 First Dates does most things better because it's a solid Adam. It's so I like 50 First Dates more than Wedding Singer. But no, I mean it's good enough. I don't begrudge people that love The Notebook, but at the same time, it's just like I've seen other romances that just do this thing a little bit more effectively, but at least the leads work. So,
Gotcha. Scott?
I enjoy this one. I always have. I did not see it in theaters, but I saw it pretty soon after. And yeah, I don't think anyone was supposed to be that surprised by the reveal in the middle of, relatively early in the third act, I think is
I think because he's like saying his name's Duke, so I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
What would have been great is if it was James Marsden's character.
Yeah, that would have been hysterical. Or just some random stranger that's lurking there.
If there was some kind of crazy twist like that, I would be all about it because I'm like, well, that's a choice.
Like, who the hell are you? Get out of here!
It's Connolly. What?
Why is James Cooper here? All of a
sudden. I do like the framing device because I think it adds a sense of melancholy to what otherwise is pretty conventional romantic melodrama. That even though we know it's going to the past end story is going to end happily, that there's still a pall of life's inevitable defeat, if you will, hanging over everything else that I think works. The very end is maybe one step too many, but I get it in the sense that they, and again, I don't know how the book ends. But it is where you need a definitive ending other than the two of them dying in different rooms. And it's sort of a way to do that in a very simple, symbolic, visual way. It just didn't bother me. Obviously, Rollins and Garner are terrific together. And I think having a stereotypical young lover story that's also, bookended by this, senior citizen romance also makes it stand out a little bit. I think the first act is very strong. I think it sort of jogs in place by maybe genre tropes when it's that middle hour is basically him out, stamping his feet, saying, why would she be with me? And she going, GG, I don't know if I should be with him. And again, that's part of the genre. I get it, but it's not particularly compelling. I think the first half hour and the last 20 or so minutes are very strong. And I think that's why this film is as popular as it is. And that's fine.
Get that.
I have seen I think all of the Nicholas Sparks pictures, just because honestly, right when the last one came out in 2014, I kind of caught up on all of them just in case I wanted to write something about it. I think they're fine for what they are. Obviously, yes, Safe Haven's very silly and it's very goofy, but I think the last song is fine for what it is. The Miley Cyrus one. I think the other one with James Marsden, where he's the lead, ridiculously melodramatic, but relatively compelling in terms of, even then, these films felt like an endangered species. It was sort of like, let's appreciate this while we got him. And for what that's worth.
I don't like to look at that because I respect it. I just doesn't mean you can't make better movies. That's why
that's why it's a 3-star movie and not a 4-star classic to me. I think it's very well acted, it's very well composed, it looks lovely, and there are certain emotional beats that work. James Marsden is once again putting far more than what's on the page.
He's great in this movie, and it's the way they get rid of him is like, all right, that's it.
Yeah. It's funny how he kind of made that his own weird stock and trade as being the other guy that really is so much better than the lead. It's not even funny. But yeah, I mean, outside of its pop culture legacy, if you will, it is a solid, compelling, generally moving 3-star romance.
Yeah. The only place where he doesn't do that is the X-Men movies, but where he's supposed to be. But I'm fine with this movie as well with Scott. I don't disagree with what Aaron's saying. But
this is a 3-star movie for me.
We get it. Yeah. 1 star. Anyway, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think it takes those things, these tropes, this stuff, and it is the best version of this that its audience wants or can have. Like, it's got great name actors giving good performance mainly around. It's got the schmaltzy stuff. It's got your tropey situations, but in a heightened sense with big production values, direction and stuff. And I think that it's satisfying what its audience wants. That audience, because this movie became a huge phenomenon. I mean, I was in college at the time. This was all over the place. It took me, I didn't see this till like later. But it was around me all the time to where, that osmosis thing where you're like, yeah, I think I got it. But and with this one, yeah, I kind of got it. But I enjoy the performances. I enjoy the camp and the cheese that comes with it. So I'm not offended by it. I know it could be better, but I also know that's a thing with how these things play out. And I'm kind of fine with it. I feel like this is like, of these things, like, this is the best version. And then these things sort of kind of go to like they evolve into some like Lifetime movie type category at some point, where it is really like woof and stuff like that. But I think Gosling is making he's building, him and like Jake Gyllenhaal build these very interesting careers to where they're still around. They're still leading things. They still get chances in blockbusters because they're not going in our faces. They're building audiences from all sorts of different genres. They're building men, women, gay, straight, young, old. Like, they're appearing in things that everybody is seeing at some point. They're not all seeing the one thing, but they're seeing them. And like, he comes up later with Stay, that little thriller in a couple years. And
Gyllenhaal made more of the big choices that
he did. He was in a big blockbuster that we did a couple weeks back.
He is like, Bubble Boy. He has a lot
Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
Because like Gosling, there was a point where I'm like, is this the best actor working right now? Because I had seen him in a number of things where I'm like, this guy's just rock solid.
Yeah.
When I saw Half Nelson, I'm like, this is one of the best performances I've seen this decade. Like,
and then he goes through his Guy Who Doesn't Smile period in the 2010s, which everybody was like,
those,
Oscar, Oscar, Oscar. And it's like,
and those are still like prestige dramas for the most part of that nature. Like, there's
Place Beyond the Pines, Drive, like,
blockbuster plays that he's making. By the time he starts doing that, they're pretty good for the most part. Like, I mean, if his worst movie's The Gray Man, a Netflix original, it's like,
true.
I'm missing something.
An otherwise talented filmmaker went to Netflix and made their worst movie ever.
Really holding that one.
Yeah, he's going. But yeah, this one's fine. I don't think you're ever gonna catch me popping it in on a rainy day or anything like that, or upgrading to a 4K or whatever. But it was fine to revisit, watch this again, and just go, okay, this is solid stuff here.
I agree with you. Like, I was happy to revisit, because I've only seen it the once, so I was happy to revisit it.
Yeah,
I want to go into like, why do I not like this more? Because that's what I'm trying to think of. Because I like this movie fine, and so like watching it now, because I know I'm going to talk to you guys about it. It's like, what is it that's holding? It's like, oh yeah, the dialogue's kind of clunky in a lot of places.
I think once the first 30 minutes when you're setting up the conflict, but then it's sort of just, there's no more story to tell until she makes her decision, which takes about an hour. Mm-hmm. And I love the.
But we are also sequence. 3 straight white and the black male, close to your 40s, not with us yet, but
black male. What does he have on us?
No, and like looking at this from that angle. But then you could have some woman go, no, this is what makes it good, and stuff, like seeing things differently and coming from different angles. So this is in our side of things, like, yeah, we all 3 can go, you can make a better picture. I've seen better romances than this, but
I've seen the last song, and this is no last song.
I think there's a whole nother sect of people, like a giant number, that are like, no, this is what makes a good movie, and could tell us what we don't have that represented on summer of 2004 at 20.
Well,
I absolutely agree with you. Like, there's and there's no point of me trying to like make that kind of excuse, being like, well, I can only, it's like, that's just what I am. That's the person I am. I can only evaluate it based on the thing that I'm seeing here. What? And as it stands, there are a lot of romance movies that I genuinely love.
Yeah.
That I think are better accomplished than this.
Right.
That appeals to me because that's just how I am, or what have you. But it's like, there's no other way I can explain that.
Well, it just felt weird to me, our conversation of all 3 of us being like, there's this wildly popular, well-regarded Notebook movie, and we're like,
we all like it.
We're all like,
we all like it.
We're all decent reviews when it came out.
I like it, but and it's just kind of like it's not like a backhanded thing we're doing here. But we're sitting here picking at it, and
this almost happens every award season, where I see these films that are supposed to be these 4-star classics, and it's like, I feel like half of my review is explaining almost apologetically why I'm not giving it 4 stars.
Right.
And
I would
it's a 3-star picture that I think is very good for what it is. I just think that middle hour, it needs something else behind in the past tense story. I think all the bookend stuff is pretty good.
I would also note that, like, I mean, I read plenty of stuff. I read plenty of lists and things about romance or what have you. Variety movies, but like, that comes up every now and again. And based on the authors that are writing these pieces, I don't see the Notebook like topping all these lists all the time either. Like, I don't feel like I'm alone just because I'm a male that has this perspective. I'm not saying that it's bad or that it doesn't earn a certain reputation for no reason or what have you. I'm just saying, even within the realm of this genre, regardless of where I lie as an audience member with that, the reputation it's garnered is certainly strong, but I wouldn't necessarily say it comes up nearly as high as other romances that are also watched by other people.
I get your lists on moviebrosandpatriots.com doesn't put it so highly, but no, just kidding. No, I get you.
It's a lot better than A Walk to Remember.
By the way, just to make sure we understand where Patriots is on all caps.
Right.
It's the more important part of it.
It's better than Message in a Bottle. It's better than A Walk to Remember.
Yeah.
This
is all movies I am not big on, like, at all, and haven't seen.
I will say 2 things in terms of. No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying, of the Spark stuff that I'm aware of, this easily stands stronger than Message in a Bottle, and that's not just because I'm not huge on Costner.
Yeah.
What's the one? Because I had to review one of these. What's the one with
Dear John was 2010 with Channing Tatum and
Is
Amanda
Fault in Our
Seyfried.
Stars one of them?
No,
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 that's
that's
John
a
Green.
That's
That movie kicks ass.
Okay.
it's not set in South Carolina. What's the one with Block of Wood? I mean Scott Eastwood. What's one of the last ones?
No, because there's one
The
with
Longest
Tatum.
Ride, maybe?
Tatum does one.
No, The Vow.
No, he
yes, Dear
doesn't.
John is this Nicholas Sparks, but The Vow was not.
Oh,
I
okay.
remember when that came out, there was like tons of articles saying, "Warning, warning! It's not based on a Nicholas Sparks novel. Don't list it as a Nicholas Sparks novel."
Yeah, the Vow is the one that's like these two people from other Nicholas Sparks novels got
Yes.
together to make a movie that's not based on one, but will convince you it is. And guess what? Box office boffo.
It worked. Yes, The Longest Ride with
Longest Ride.
Scott Eastwood and Britt Robertson.
Yeah, my lovely girlfriend and I, we had to watch it. I had the Blu-ray to review. So I'm like, let's watch a Sparks movie. And we put it on. It's like, not bad. it's whatever. Got cowboys doing bull riding and stuff.
Gotcha.
I will say, I think this is something Ryan or Aaron kind of hit on, but by the time this comes out, Ryan Gosling has such a reputation for playing super intense and/or weird, strange characters that it's almost against type that he's starring in a romantic melodrama.
Well, he only has like 2 movies before.
Yeah, he's got the Titans.
Yeah, he has Titans, which nobody knows him in, and then he's a Mickey Mouse guy, so he's that. But then after that, it's The Believer, where he's a Jew that becomes a Nazi. One of my favorite comedies, and Murder by Numbers.
You have piqued my zone of interest with that.
Wait, is Lars and the Real Girl before this?
No, it's after.
That's
it's after. Yeah,
it's the mustache. He's older.
Yeah, of course.
His career really comes after this. Like this.
Yeah, after this is where he gets these like juicy character roles. Where I'm like, this is the greatest guy working right now. That's like legit for like a good 3 years.
Were him and McAdams a couple in real life too for a bit after this? So that helped sell this whole movie too.
They won the MTV Best Kiss Award, obviously. So even though that's
was Nicholas Sparks the last new marquee author that actually had a handful of adaptations?
Handful
sold on his name.
What was his first one? Was it Notebook? Was the first one, or
what?
I mean, he had quite a few, and John Green came like.
I was going to say John Green was like the attempt, but that didn't really go.
Yeah. Well, just because in 2014, a movie like A Fault in Your Stars could make $300 million, and by 2016, it would barely get a theatrical release.
Well, I mean, if you're talking Sparks, the difference there is that there's multiple movies that he's written, but like if you could, because you can throw like Twilight in there, but that's like a series. That's different.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we count playwrights?
A new playwrights like William Moraniel,
like Tyler Perry became around there, and he was a playwright.
That's a good point though. I would say that's a good answer for that question, because that's a very specific audience. It's a niche, and it becomes a thing. Mm-hmm. From him, because he's specifically, adapting either his plays or making new material for Medea. Yeah, that's a good question, though, Scott. Which we should definitely spend a lot of time in this podcast thinking about and not talking about.
I will say before we move on from The Notebook, the Ferris wheel scene in the opening of this film, not as funny as the one in Texas Chainsaw 3D. Just saying. Sorry, Gosling. Where a person hangs on a Ferris wheel.
Although I will say,
Doom Below,
for all the years and years of people calling out that scene as being problematic or whatever, it's like she tears off his pants and humiliates him at the end of that, and that really doesn't, result in him getting a date with her. He has to try to win her over again after that.
Yeah, and
people hate big sweeping gestures, Scott. That's just how it is.
Yep.
No one likes being wooed. Ever.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what Twitter's for, to tell you how much they hate being wooed by things. Stop trying. That's the message.
Which TV did that same thing this week. As we hit the Nielsen ratings.
It's a big takedown when cops in Florida go after another pair of bad girls.
Been pulled over? Are we? Shut up. Oh, we are. Shut up.
Is Paris and Nicole in The Simple Life 2?
See a license or registration? What is registration?
Season premiere this June on Fox.
This is a milestone for the Summer of series with this week of the ratings, and we'll see if you can guess it by the end. Number one, The Amazing Race on CBS. Number 2, 60 Minutes on CBS. Number 3, The Simple Life on Fox. Number 4, Big Brother Tuesday on CBS. Number 5, Big Brother Thursday on CBS. Number 6, Dateline Friday on NBC. Number 7, 60 Minutes on The Quickening on CBS. Number 8, 48 Hours Wednesday on CBS. Number 9, Trading Spouses Meet New Mommy on Fox. No, kids today, that was not a Pornhub special. And number 10, Extreme Makeover on ABC. Do you know the trend here? What happened this week?
No scripted shows.
0. There are not one scripted drama, comedy, or movie in the top 10.
It's the summer, and all the shows at seasonality.
And I mean, we had been building since the early 2000s of Survivor hits, and then reality takes off. And there was no strike at this time or anything that caused that. I mean, in the late 2000s, we get a whole, it's going, I don't know if it's going away, but it gets a resurgence with the writers' strike in 2008. There's a bump on the, or 2007. Was it 2007, the writers' strike?
2008, 2009.
2008, 2009. So then it sees a bump of reality stuff there. But here, I mean, you started with Survivor, it leads to, The Mole, and then Big Brother comes over from another country, right? That's a remake of something, and you get game show, like reality, and then we have these like Simple Life shows, and
that's how I knew TV though when I was, a teenager and before, as far as when TV was off.
Summer TV was off. Cable might have shows on if you watch like Sci-Fi Channel or HBO or something like that. There might be a show on there. But yeah, you didn't watch. There was nothing on in the summer.
Nowadays, it's all year round, and it sucks because there's too much. To watch.
Summer used to be a place where you would hope to catch reruns, but around this time they kept putting reality new shit on, and you couldn't catch a rerun. You couldn't catch up on a show you missed throughout the year to catch up for the next season. They had DVD box sets, but you either had to buy it for, if you were in my age, an unaffordable price at the time when you're in college or stuff. And then you go to Blockbuster or Video or Hollywood Video or wherever you rented, and you're like, well, they've got the first disc in and the third disc in. Well, what am I going to do here? So it was a really interesting time because in the 90s and stuff, you would be like, okay, summer reruns. I didn't catch this show this year. Are they rerunning it? Yes, they are. I will check it out. But now there's like, well, we have reality stuff to dump every week. So there you go. But speaking of quality programming, we are moving on to our next film, White Chicks.
To protect America's wealthiest heiresses.
I think this babysitting gig sucks.
The FBI's finest.
I want to be where the action is. Okay, Blackie Chan.
Will have to become them.
I'm looking like freaking Shrek.
From the director of Scary Movie. They're going.
You damn G-strings are killing me.
Where no man's gone before.
What's up, money? You got a problem? Yo, hold my poodle. So you want some of this? I'll take the both of you.
White Chicks.
Directed by Keenan Ivory Wayans. Written by Keenan Ivory Wayans, Sean Wayans, Marlon Wayans, Andrew McElfresh, Michael Anthony Snowden, Xavier Cook. On a story by Keenan, Sean, and Marlon Wayans. Starring Sean Wayans, Marlon Wayans, Jamie King, Frank Faison, Lachlan Monroe, John Hurd, Busy Phillips, Terry Crews, Brittany Daniel, Eddie Velez, Jessica Caulfield, who looks like she's playing Amy Sedaris trying to play an old person going undercover to be with schoolgirls in this movie.
It's a Stranger with Candy situation.
Yes, it looks like Maitland Ward is in this, Ann Dudek, Jennifer Carpenter, and John Reardon. Two disgraced FBI agents go way undercover in an effort to protect a hotel heiress, the Wilson sisters, from a kidnapping plot. Well, this is when it came to summer of 2004. This was, stuck out. It's the summer the White Chicks came out. A movie that, whether you saw it or not, pop culture wise, you were like, oh my God. With it, I I will say that these Marlon and Sean Wayans were continually, and even after this, producing, outrageous comedies was their thing. I liked in the 90s Don't Be a Menace. Thought that was a funny movie. But Scott, White Chicks, all-time comedies, where's it fall for you?
They don't look human, Brandon. They look like monsters from the depths of hell. Bastardizations of science. They look like characters from the Dark Crystal. I could not suspend my disbelief. No. It didn't make sense then or now.
I mean, if you think of all the work people had done on their faces, maybe they were trying to.
They look like characters from the Dark Crystal, I will say again. What are they, the Elfings or whatever? I don't remember. It's been too long. No, my wife likes this movie, and that should tell you everything you need to know right there. I mean, when I first met her, her favorite Bond movie was A View to a Kill.
I mean, in her defense,
when I first met her, that's suddenly not the case anymore.
this feels like a movie that could have slightly altered itself and focused and been a raunch comedy aimed at teen girls more than just maybe boys will find this funny or something like that. But I feel like there's a slight pivot in this movie, visual effects aside, that could have focused more to sell to teen girls than just whatever they were selling this to.
Yeah, I mean, it was terrible then, and it's terrible now. I mean, it's not particularly funny. The storyline doesn't go in any particularly interesting directions. There's not all that much social satire, and that's being generous. I mean, it is what it is. The 2-star comedy that didn't make me laugh. Obviously, the extent that I go nuts on it is just because they don't look remotely like they would fool anybody in any circumstance. And I get that there's a certain amount of disbelief, and it's weird because on one hand, if they had just cast the 2 actresses that were playing the heiresses with the implication that they, were the FBI agents underneath, that would be more plausible. But then a lot of it's in a skewed way, a lot of the laughs are supposed to come from how poorly done the work is, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because the joke is that, oh my God, they look hideous. And I don't mean, it's and there's not much else there other than that. And yes, it's nice that the film has a certain empathy in terms of, at no point does, it's at the end of the movie, Terry Crews is like, oh, I don't care that you were a man, but you weren't white. That sucks. Which is funny. That's Terry Crews is giving.
This is the breakout role for Terry Crews too.
It really is. This is the first
crazy.
time I noticed him because it's such a larger than life performance.
Third time this
2 years
summer.
later, he does Idiocracy.
Yeah. But before we had viral moments and memes and stuff, him singing the Vanessa Carlton song was a recurring clip that showed up on things a lot.
And no, I mean, I obviously I'm being intentionally over the top in terms of my, acting like Victor Frankenstein's best friend, telling him to stop before it's too late. But otherwise, yeah, it's a mediocre 2000s era comedy. I like some of the Wayans brothers stuff more than others, and this is one that just doesn't do anything for me. And yes, it's funny to watch in the sense of sitting with my wife and sort of giving her dirty looks. And yes, my children thought the going to the bathroom scene was hysterical, to which I was like, we got a real going to the bathroom scene coming up in about a month. You have no idea how much better it can be. But yeah, I mean, it's a mediocre studio comedy, and the only thing that makes it worse than that is just that they don't look human, and that is funny to me. The fact that they look like rejects from, again, the Dark Crystal. And I've always felt that way. And I was hoping when I watched this film for the first time in many, 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 many years, I would sort of like, oh, okay, I can now appreciate what they were trying to do, yada, yada, yada. But it was mediocre then, it's mediocre now. It's no
Gotcha.
Soul Plane.
Aaron.
I hate this movie. I've never liked it. I'm a huge Wayne's guy, as far as I grew up with The Living Color. There's plenty of Wayne stuff that I appreciate. I always respect the Waynes as a dynasty, not unsimilar to the Baldwins. I mean, honestly, I mean, there's the fact that they've cultivated this whole thing as far as having multi-generations of talented individuals being able to accomplish what they have. I am incredibly impressed by that, and I enjoy the fact that they continue to thrive in various capacities. That said, this among the other specifically Sean Marlon Keenan properties that came out during the 2000s, Little Man, they're bad. They're really, really bad. And this is one that I really can't enjoy, partially because it's just a terrible comedy that I don't find funny, and I think mediocre is being generous. But on top of that,
yeah,
not unlike the fact that I did not have the greatest experience with Napoleon Dynamite, this movie, white people love this movie. they love quoting this movie. There is a large cult audience that is very specific and demographic that I always encounter that have plenty of great things to say about white chicks. And I can't abide that, Brandon. I can't. I don't think any of the humor is particularly funny. Obviously there's bits and stuff that make me like smile or chuckle, and Terry Crews is innocent, like he's doing his thing. Like there's, you can't, there's this many things happening, obviously something's gonna stick, but not a lot of it. And on top of that, yeah, what Scott said as far as the look of this thing, there's a way to do this where, yes, that could be very much the joke, but that's not what Keenan gets as a director out of this. Like he's not equipped to do what he needs to do to make this thing work, which is weird because Keenan can't be a good, honestly, like the action stuff at the beginning is fine. Like, if you wanted to make like a buddy cop movie, I could see him being able to accomplish that based on the first 5 minutes of this film. But the approach to, which is because, like, Don't Be a Menace, like you mentioned, like that's a better made movie. Scary Movie is a better made movie.
Message.
Like, they have these. There's clearly ability to like get what they want out of like the subjects they're going for, but there's nothing they're skewering here. There's the social commentary. Just saying social commentary in relation to white chicks is exhausting for me because there's nothing there that's sharp or clever or subversive or anything of that nature. And I've seen it being argued that there is, and I'm not there at all. Like I can't find like the place where this movie is like trying to do something that I'm just not seeing. Like I can't crack that case. So like if for those that do find this smarter than I certainly think, good on you. But this movie, it just lacks in every single way. And it's a shame because I do think there is potential to do something like that. I just recently watched The Watermelon Man with Melvin Van Peebles. And that movie, which involves a person who was white, gets turned into a black man, is hilarious. Like there's things it's doing. Now, am I expecting the Wayans brothers to do something revolutionary like a 70s filmmaker? No, not necessarily. But I do think that the potential to make something out of this could work in the right sense, but it just has nothing going for it. And it goes for lowest common denominator humor that I'm not against when it's funny, but it's not funny. Like it's just, and this movie's fucking almost 2 hours. Like it's not, this isn't a tight 80. Like this movie is so long and it's like so much plot. Like, why is there so much plot in a movie like this? It just doesn't add up to much at all. So no, I have deep issues with this movie for annoying me, as well as annoying me that it has like the fans that quote it incessantly for reasons that are beyond me.
Yeah, I didn't know there was like fans. Like I is it ironically or genuinely think it's good?
Think American Fiction.
Okay. So yeah, I'm not a fan of this movie. I saw it once long ago and have been happy to not look back. I thought that the moment of Terry Crews doing Vanessa Carlton was funny then. He's a ball of energy that I like him whenever Terry Crews is there. I more or less like enjoy what he's bringing. I think there's a good story they incidentally find with the three girls trying to fit in this community, with Jennifer Carpenter, Busy Phillips, and Jessica Caulfield. But I wish they all weren't at the service and mercy of the Wayans brothers. Like those are the white chicks I want to learn more about. I mean, I don't know. Like I get the idea and stuff, but like that's not the movie they're here to make. But there's the movie I'm finding within it. Because I like Jennifer Carpenter quite a bit. This is an early appearance from her.
I know you do, and I've always wondered if you like her more because of like. I wonder if I like her less because of I don't like this movie. Like I feel like I constantly tag this with her. So
I like her. Like she's got an interesting. Like I don't like. I mean, I like her in the Exorcism movie and then Dexter, but I don't like that remake of Wreck. I don't, like she's not.
Dexter's the main thing because I watched all of Dexter.
Yeah.
I don't know because she's not in a lot of stuff. So like that's the only thing I've seen her besides White Chicks. And I always wonder if I would have liked her character more if I hadn't seen White Chicks.
That might be it, man. Like that could be like Jessica Caulfield don't want you to know, so she's disguising herself as Amy Sedaris. So that's why she's trying to get away with it.
In retrospect.
But these three girls feel like the third choices of whatever they would have wanted for the movie. That's kind of where they're at there, because Brittany Daniel was a person at the time. Like she had been in some notable things and she never really took off. And same with Jamie King. Like Jamie King was like name on a poster at the time, actually, like Bulletproof Monk. Some other things, but yeah. They were selling that trailer with her name, like Shaw, it was like Chow Yun Fat, Sean William Scott, Jamie King, or it was James King, is what she was going as for a bit. So yeah, it was just kind of interesting. Like I got another thing. I know he's a Wayans mainstay, but Lachlan Monroe.
Yeah.
Is he like the king of character actors that are only in bad movies? Like, can you name me? Like, I'd say the best movie I think I've seen Lachlan Monroe in, and that's probably not one to champion around because depending what room I'm in, is Freddy versus Jason, and he sucks in it. So,
for whatever reason,
oh my God,
his energy works for me. Not in this movie, but like in general, like
he's not a bad guy. Like
I don't look at him and be like, it's him. Like in the same way I look at other certain comedic performers. Because I think like in Scary Movie, for example, I think he's legit hilarious in that film. As he's playing playing Ryan Seacrest's character, and I know what you did last summer, and I think he does it pretty well.
I mean, Dead Man on Campus, he's good. He's good. It's a bad movie, but you get that point of that part.
I mean, he's fine, I'm sure, in most of these, but this is the most cursed filmography I've ever seen.
There's nothing.
Oh my God.
There is nothing.
Again, I think there's a few things, but I agree with you. I hear what you're saying. I get why you would come away with it.
Like, I was thinking about him, like, I know him, I recognize him, I enjoy his presence, but I can't think of, like, notable achievements of Lachlan Monroe. Like,
I can think of other actors in other Wayans Brothers movies that I like less than. I'll put it that way. I guess
right. Fair enough. And I'm not disgracing him. I'm like, somebody cast him in something like really good, please. Like not just okay, not just solid. I want Lachlan Monroe to get like 2 lines in Oppenheimer. Like bring him in, let him say
the Josh Hartnett treatment.
Yeah, well, Josh Hartnett's got shining moments, big pictures, like successes. Like he had Hollywood Homicide. Lachlan Monroe doesn't even
those shining successes that only us three like. Hollywood Homicide.
His most shining success, says me, and pretty much no one else.
Lachlan Monroe doesn't even have like the first Power. Like he doesn't even have that. Like that's where we're at. But this movie, yeah, it's bad. It's not very funny. Like it's not. It's like it stopped at its concept, and then like look at how ridiculous they look, and then their next idea is the little man. Their next one,
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're on like, what if we did weird shit to our bodies, or like silly stuff. When I mean, it's good to get away from just doing parody movies all the time. That's good. But I think everybody here is, even Wayans, including Keenan Ivory, like capable of so much better. This is like a shock and awe to the studio when you're pitching it. Like, oh yeah, let's do that. I don't know if they're cashing in scary movie money at this point, but it's just
They are. No,
like,
that's
I'm speculating there might be some bitterness of them being tossed out of the Scary Movie franchise.
well, that's why they're
Yeah.
at Sony now and not Miramax anymore.
yeah. It's
Like,
this is just, it is
Which is
the
a classic
disaster
case.
that it looks like. It is like you saw the poster, you're like, oh god. You saw the trailer, you're like, oh god. And the movie's worse than both. Like like I this was when I was like, well, we got to sit through it. It's like, oh, and then I like, oh shit, it is long. I can't just like pop this in. Like, I got to make
gets to its premise really quickly, so there's a
Yeah.
long time to spend in that one joke.
Yeah, and I get in there and I'm like, oh yeah, that's in this, and she's in this, and then after that, everybody's settled. We got in the room. We have to sit there until a timer runs out and like pray that no one grabs a knife in the middle of the room and starts killing everybody. Like, it's a long haul to the end, and there's nothing compelling here. I don't get the concept of like why didn't they just make the Wayans white chicks without the facial mask, have them play the white chicks, and then have them play themselves right after, and not have to do the weird Ann Dudek, Maitland Ward
and
shit.
that's
Like,
the core problem with the movie is that the comedy is predicated on, look how bad this makeup looks. Look how bad this work that we have done for this movie is. And that's not to...
It's not inherently a problem. It's just, it's hard to not look at that and like feel a certain, like,
they're monsters, Aaron. They are not creatures of God.
Because I can see that working. I can see the idea of, look at how, like, it's so bad that you can't, like, it's fun to like engage with like how ridiculous this thing is, but the movie's not good enough to angle it that way. That's the core issue I have with this thing.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here for an hour and 45 minutes watching a thing I do not like. It's because it doesn't know how to do it.
And the sad thing is, the best jokes that aren't Terry Crews scenes are the lowest hanging fruit that aren't that funny.
It's
like
stuff. It's things like the dance-off stuff is fun. It's stuff that like.
Did anyone ever tell you look like Denzel Washington? Well,
it's a lot of just bad. It's annoying. It's annoying because like, and I like saying this a lot because I think Marlon Wayans in particular is a good actor. If you put him in
Dungeons and Dragons, he's great.
When you shut up, when you put him in stuff that's when you put him in stuff that's not this, and I'm happy that he's able to like, he made a production company, he made all these comedy hits that I also
he crushed it in G.I. Joe. Like, and that's a weird one to call out, but like
that's
he's very good in that.
When it's G.I. Joe, when it's the Sofia Coppola movie On the Rocks that he's in, when it's obviously the Aronofsky Requiem for a Dream, like I've seen him be good lots of times.
And he's the one of the two you wouldn't think would be that between him and Sean.
And Sean's the face. He's always been the handsome one.
Yeah,
that's always been his thing. I'm happy that he's because he's also a DJ. He's doing his own thing now. He doesn't really act anymore. Good for him. Has a family. Good on him. Marlon, I keep like. I want to see him be in more stuff that's not like the stuff that I do not like at all. Because I do think he so much promise to the point of he was Robin. Like, remember this always.
Yeah.
Like, you don't become Robin for no reason.
Right.
So.
I will say I'm very happy that Terry Crews breaks out, that Brittany Daniel, Ann Dudek, Jennifer Carpenter, they have careers after this. Busy Phillips goes on. Maitland Ward does porn, Jessica Caulfield, she was like a flash in the pan for like the late 90s, early 2000s. That was like, boom, the Jessica Caulfield moment. And it was like her and Amanda Detmer were like, can we get Amanda Detmer? No, can we get Caulfield then? We'll go a little bit more clowny. And they both were in this window. And
with
It's
with
weird
Keenan.
because
Keenan makes this movie with Brittany Daniel, and then they make Little Man a few years later, and then they become like a couple for like a good like 5 or 6 years or something before they break.
Well, then she went and starred on that BET show, The Game.
It was on the
Is that
game
what-
for
yeah, she was bunch.
it was, on,
Yeah,
it was on UPN, and then
Yeah.
like moved all over the place.
because she had like Joe Dirt was a movie she did around this time.
The early 2000s was her, and then like
Yeah.
Club Dread same year.
Club Dread, yep. Okay, so yeah, let's just move on from fucking white chicks because I'm done. We'll go to Ryan Seacrest.
No. One very minor,
Oh,
just
Jesus.
because something you guys touched on earlier.
Yeah.
No. Jennifer Carpenter.
Yeah.
I associate her so much with darker, grittier, more serious fare that, like, if I had come into this almost would have felt like an against typecasting, or it'd been kind of fun to watch her in this goofy, ridiculous comedy.
Right.
Anyway, carry on.
Gotcha.
There were jokes. It would.
Ha! There you go. All right. So the Ryan Seacrest Weekly Top 40 this week.
American Top 40 with Ryan Seacrest.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. American Top 40.
Start with number 10. We saw it. We started at 1. We have all fallen all the way to 10. Is Usher feature Little Chris and Little John, but I think things are gonna be okay for Usher. Number 9, Freak a Leak by Petey Pablo, motherfucker. And moving number 8, This Love by Maroon 5, slowly creeping in there, which appeared in White Chicks. All right, so you know this movie was being edited up to the last, which with Scary Movie and stuff, there are jokes in those movies that like happened 2 weeks before the movie came out, and you're like, what the fuck? How did they parody that?
That's some Trey Parker worthy shit.
Yeah, Scary Movie and Scary Movie 2. Scary Movie 2 does that a little more. Scary Movie avoids that a bit. It's the ones that come from the seltzer, those guys that keep credited for 2 of the writers from Scary Movie. They get it's like 2 weeks. They had like a Hancock joke before Hancock came out in theaters.
Yeah.
In like their movies. Like,
yeah. So number 7, which This Love could have honestly been like, because a lot of times when like a new band or something's making an album, they start throwing the tracks to soundtracks and stuff just to get the music out there too. So they could have been holding on to this while shooting any sorts of things. So happy coincidence. Number 7 is Naughty Girl by Beyonce. Number 6, moving up 1 spot, Overnight Celebrity by Twista. Alicia Keys, If I Ain't Got You. Number 5, jumping up 3 spots. Number 4, falling back 1. I Don't Want to Know, Mario Winans featuring P. Diddy and Enya is over. You're never going to get number 1. You're the James Marsden here of the top 40. Number 3, falling 1 spot, The Reason by Hoobastank.
Reason.
Yes. And number 2, here we go, getting crazy. Up 3 spots from number 5, and this one jumped up fast. Confessions Part 2 from Usher, which means once again for 6 weeks straight, it's Usher with Burn. He's had 3 songs at the top. Like, it's just how huge he is. It's just crazy to me. Just Summer of Usher. He is really like, we should have had one of his movies come out this summer, but he's too busy touring and making the music. The music videos. All right. Our main picture today did not even play in 1,000 screens this week, but dominated at the BO, which is Farenheit 9//11. I think it's a spinoff of Reno 911 or something like that.
Correct.
The FAA has closed all of the airports in the United States.
We had some airplanes authorized at the highest levels of our government to pick up Osama bin Laden's family members and transport them out of this country.
September 11th, I need to know what happened.
How did it happen? Why did it happen? And who authorized it?
From Academy Award winner Michael Moore comes the most controversial film of the year.
My answer is bring him on.
Fahrenheit 9/11. This film is not yet rated. Starts June 25th.
Directed by Michael Moore. Written by Michael Moore. Starring Michael Moore and George W. Bush. The Summer of George! Michael Moore's view on what happened to the United States after September 11th and how the Bush administration allegedly used the tragic event to push forward its agenda for unjust wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. All right. Scott or Aaron, who wants to tackle this one first?
I'll go. I mean,
all right, Scott.
I mean, this was obviously this was a one of a kind, lightning in a bottle up culture event 20 years ago. It was sort of that and the Passion of the Christ as these
a documentary with hype. It was crazy.
Yes. Well, no, I mean,
Parent
not to
hype.
skip ahead, but
Parent hype. Yeah.
Touche. The film was originally produced at Miramax, apparently without Disney knowing about it. And there were issues in terms of Disney being afraid to release it because of obvious political backlash. One thing led to another, and they basically gave Bobby Weinstein the movie back, and they ended up going to Lionsgate. Actually, Lionsgate, between Dogma, which also was supposed to be Miramax, but got tossed because Disney was scared, and this film, ditto, Lionsgate got put on the map by movies that Disney wouldn't release because they were political hot potatoes.
Funny enough, the Miramax catalog would eventually end up at Lionsgate for home video years down the road. Anyway.
And so, yeah, I mean, this was obviously Moore's follow-up to Bowling for Columbine, which won an Oscar for Best Documentary in 2003. Right as the Iraq War was starting, he was very vocal in criticizing the war during his Oscar speech. There was a mix of boos and applause, but allegedly the audio mix was finagled in a way so you could only hear the boos, but that's urban legend.
I remember that night. The boos seemed louder because boos are always louder. Sound louder.
I mean, that being said, I mean, I watched the Howard Dean scream live and it didn't seem weird because when it was live, he was screaming over people that were applauding and cheering. And when you saw it aired after the fact, the audio didn't include as much of the cheering and applause. So it sounded like a lunatic screaming at the top of his lungs to an empty gallery. But I digress. That's not what cost him the primary campaign. What cost Howard Dean the primary campaign is that he came in third in Iowa, despite every expectation that he would, win that in a rout. But I digress. This is not one of Michael Moore's best pictures, partially because there's a certain throw everything at the wall feeling to it, because it's trying to be a definitive historical document in terms of this gigantic event. It's not like Bowling for Columbine, where you're dealing with a very specific issue and the very specific cultural consequences and or causes of the Columbine school shooting of 1999. This is much more of a macro piece. I think it's much stronger. I still think it's much stronger in the first half when it's sort of connecting all the dots that would eventually lead from George W. Bush's election in 2000 to the Iraq War in 2003. The last act of the film, while obviously emotional for obvious reasons in terms of the loss of blood and treasure for no good cause, it's pretty much going through the motions in terms of, this war was a terrible idea and look at all these lives that we've lost. Now, there wasn't much about this picture that would have been a big surprise for people that paid a certain amount of attention during this period. And that's not a criticism of the movie, because it did kind of want to be sort of an all-purpose encapsulation of the period. There was some criticism, some disingenuous, some not, that, this is just liberal political theater 101. And it's like, yeah, this was supposed to be a gateway drug. There's even like a reading list, a recommended reading list at the end credits. But obviously watching this 20 years later is a very depressing experience. Because it reminded me of stuff that even I don't want to say forgot, but it's like, yes, I do vaguely remember not only the manner in which Al Gore won the election and then lost the election and then conceded the election, while in all likelihood he probably won the election. But this, when the film came out, it was this, I went on opening night and it was like a fucking Avengers movie in terms of the crowd size and the intermingling of the people, friends and strangers alike in the theater, and the certain excitement. We perhaps stupidly thought this is going to be a major piece of political theater that would have a major impact on the 2004 election. Obviously, that didn't happen. Now, you can argue that the popularity of this film and the pop culture impact it made possibly prevented Carrie from getting just completely wiped out, but that's conjecture. Again, 20 years later, it's there are certain things that Michael Moore does in all of his movies that stick out even more now than they did then, like sort of doing the golly gee, I didn't know that for stuff that he clearly knows. There's a certain what me, I'm an idiot in his first person chitter chatter, and his need to sort of insert himself in the narrative, including certain stunts, although he doesn't do as nearly as many of those as he does in some of his other pictures. It's weird because this is, for obvious reasons, sort of the definitive Michael Moore movie, and probably the definitive movie in terms of this early to mid 2000s era of activist documentary filmmaking that, again, was theatrically successful on a level that we had never seen before or since, frankly, with a couple very small exceptions. And it was made by a bunch of filmmakers that really thought they were going to change the world. But as a documentary, it's fine. It does connect the dots. It feels thorough. It feels accurate, frankly. I mean, I remember noticing from this period of discourse is that those on the right weren't saying that the movie wasn't true. They were just arguing that Michael Moore was a jackass, and ergo we shouldn't listen to him. And that
he's biased.
Yeah, he's biased. He's disingenuous. Whatever is like, and even then it was like, okay, but is what they are saying truthful or not? And I still feel that way, even when it's somebody that's I'm inclined to think is a shithead. To use a much less perilous example, I may think David Zaslav is an asshole, but that doesn't mean everything he says or does is incorrect. And if he says or does something that is correct, then it doesn't matter if he's an asshole. The thing is still correct. So I think the way that this film was challenged on the political stage by the Republicans opened up sort of a can of worms in terms of how you counteract this kind of discourse. You don't go after the thing that was said. You try to impugn the character of the person that said it. And as a film, I mean, it's entertaining. It's occasionally funny. It's obviously infuriating on a number of levels, then and now. I still think Bowling for Columbine is his masterpiece. And I still think, although I also think Where Do We Invade Next is a fascinating, sort of postscript after, this kind of filmmaking more or less stopped making a difference. But as far as this, I think it's far more interesting as a lightning in a bottle pop culture moment in time than as a pretty good takedown of the early George W. Bush years. And I've been rambling for a while, so I don't know what Aaron thinks.
That was Scott's sneaky way of saying he hates the Looney Tunes. Aaron.
Hey, I saw it back in action on opening day or opening weekend, and there was nobody in the theater. So if you want to tell me that Looney Tunes are not commercial, I'll say, yes, I remember. You're right.
Aaron.
I think it's clear that like I'm like not super politically focused when it comes to like these kind of things, and so like my interest in it only goes so far as what I'm going to grasp out of it. Certainly in 2004, so like the anticipation for this movie on my end was like, okay, I saw Bowling for Columbine, which I think is almost a masterpiece. I don't think it quite lands it by the end, but I do think it's pretty good. And I would agree. Also, I like Sicko and Where to Invade Next quite a bit. But leading up to this film, I was like, while I certainly had like opinions about what was taking place in Iraq and what have you, it's like I don't know what I'm going to get exactly beyond just seeing a filmmaker that I seem to enjoy enough as a documentarian, and like what that's going to be like watching in like a big movie theater as opposed to renting the video at home after the fact. So I remember the hype being super like not just high as far as we're gonna like, take down Bush and all this stuff as far as like what the movie's concerned, but like just the very content of it. Like I was being told they have an actual beheading in this movie. Like that's the kind of stuff I was hearing. Like that's how crazy this thing's gonna be. And it was like you got footage of beheading, like that's what they're gonna show. So it's like I don't know what to expect right now. And so I saw this, my friend Scooter, um, friend about now, Farenheit, opening night, crowd packed theater. Packed to the brim, front row and everything. Everybody packed theater to see this movie. And watching it, I with Scott as far as there was a kind of a verve in the audience. There was people were like laughing and cheering at certain parts, and laughing at poking at Bush, and getting emotional in the times that needed emotion and what have you. They're like really responding to exactly what Michael Moore wanted you to do in this movie, and that's ultimately its flaw. It's the director is directing you to feel very specific ways throughout the film. It's not it's not a horrible thing to do, but watching this movie, it's like watching it now, especially, it's like there's not a real opportunity for me to do a lot of critical thinking because I'm being just presented with every single thing very ham-fistedly, in a sense that I agree with what you said, Scott. Like it's not inaccurate. It's just there's no room for anything else except everything he's throwing at you very specifically and very pointedly. Now, the attitude that it has as far as what it's against and what is going on, like fine. Like I'm not against seeing a movie that's like gonna poke a certain level of fun at a side of the aisle, let alone a situation that we've trapped ourselves in for bullshit reasons. And so it's like, yeah, I can go along with that. And I do think Michael Moore is a very entertaining filmmaker, regardless of how I feel about him or even the messaging in some of his movies. I can't deny that he knows how to make it. Like I'd be curious to see more of him doing actual films. He did Canadian Bacon. Has he done anything else besides that? As far as like
I don't
he's done,
believe so.
and I'd be curious if he ever actually wanted to do, basically do better versions of what Jon Stewart's tried. As far as being someone that's very politically motivated, but actually has filmmaking talent. I like Rosewater. I did not like the other movie that he made. Jon Stewart was. So like watching this is like, yeah, it gets me to respond emotionally in the ways he wants me to. That's fine. Am I taking away a whole lot? Is beyond like stuff that I wouldn't know without this movie. Am I taking away a lot as far as now I'm going to sit back and think about this? Not necessarily. That's how I felt then, and that's, I mean, there's no reason for me to feel any differently now because it's, I'm not gonna say dated, but it's certainly it's speaking to a very specific time and place. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I mean, and Brandon, you go. I go think more about things with it.
Okay, so this one, yeah, there was a lot of hype with this when it came out, and I feel like, and I want to play a little bit of like devil's advocate with it a bit because I do agree with everything. Scott probably laid it out better than Aaron and I could, but like at what point,
as always,
yeah, at what point does this like look like a piece of propaganda? Because it's being released in June. There's an election in November. This is probably hitting DVD, HBO, whatever, September, October, just in time for more people to see it. Like, I get try to do, but it feels as much as, yeah, it's right, it's all this, but it feels like this nice piece is being used in a propagandist way, which could deter the person that needs to see it from seeing it or something like that. So backfiring on what it is. Looking, back then when I saw this was coming out and stuff like that, I didn't put two and two together. I wasn't the brightest kid then. I'm still not now. But looking at it now, like back then it was like, whoa. And it's funny because I remember the 2000 election is the first election I could vote in. I paid, and it happened to be this barn burner one that I was watching till midnight, then the craziness. But I remember the reporting about the problem. What was the thing that was the problem with the recount and stuff? The hanging chads, right? Yeah. But that's simple. What you see here in this this is way more complex issues than fucking hanging chads and voting machines. And you have these people, and just to see the orchestration of the senators and stuff, just not even give a chance to looking into it more, and Gore just having to like smirk through defeat without where there's legitimate claims to, hey, let's take one more look at this. Let's do not one senator, not one Democratic, not one Republican sign this thing through, and they push through. So they're Democratic senators just as guilty. I mean, it didn't even have to be from the state, right? It could have been just any.
One problem then and now is that the Republicans tend to bend or break the rules, and then the Democrats like have to double down to go by the book to preserve the institutions, which in fact lets them get away with it.
And the Democrats probably push to hurry up and just get this over with, please. And so there's that's interesting. I feel like he's a bit too angry telling this with it too. There's like a little bit behind it, and a little bit of more him being high on himself after bowling from Columbine doing this documentary. And then some of it came across like watching it then I never felt that way. I was intrigued. I like it. But now I'm like, ooh, this is a bit conspiratorial feeling. Like, did this inspire a lot of these wacko docs? Like I mentioned Loose Change a bit back, because that's told in a very similar fashion to the setup for this movie.
To that, I would say it feels similar to something like Ebert impact on critics, as far as there's an everyman quality to Michael Moore that I think appeals to a lot. That's, I think, why he's a popular documentarian. If you're asked to name documentarians, I think his name comes up rather quickly because he's popular, and not regardless if he's likable, he's someone that you can gather, like, I have an idea of what a documentarian does because this guy does a certain thing a certain way. And I think that would go on to inspire other people. And we've talked about this already with Morgan Spurlock thing. We're at a time when it's easier to make films and stuff, and here you have $100 million documentary coming out that's like, well, this gives me an idea how I can make a documentary. Like, I think that's a part of it.
Well, there's the bullshit thing where he runs around the ice cream truck reading the bill to them. I'm like, what's that fucking do? Like, going on the street, asking them questions about it. Did you know this point, pointing out things, and then them going, fine, I didn't fucking read it. That's enough. And then you showboat it.
It's trailer shots, and it's because he's it's the filmmaker. That's the stuff that's gonna work.
Yeah, I mean,
those are also the things that unfortunately back then even went viral.
Well, the big trailer moment was the watch me hit this putt, or watch me hit this drive thing. Back to the propaganda thing, more so that this story's not over. Like, the better documentary is the documentarian who's patient and sees this play out, whether it ends in the 2004 election and things have a different regime, or, oh shit, he's here for another 4 years. We need to really look at this because it's inconclusive. It's just, here's what you voted for last time. And this is what happened.
Well, I think the intent was to say, here's what you voted for last time. Maybe you didn't know about it. Let's make a different decision this time. So yeah, it is propaganda. And I say that neutrally. I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with propaganda, the idea of bias and objectivity or blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to walk into this being duped into thinking they're seeing something that they're not.
Right.
It is a liberal firebrand, epic poem of that nature. And you know what, PBS had a spectacular long form documentary in 2008 about it was called Bush's War. And it was all about the Iraq War. And if you want your hindsight, here's everything that went wrong and how, that exists. This was something else. This was the lunatic time traveler traveling to the past saying, you have to stop. I've seen the future. We're all fucked.
Yeah. It speaks to I remember what I was going to say earlier. It speaks to one of my main issues with the film as a film is that Scott, you mentioned already, the front half is loaded with more entertaining stuff because it wants you to feel that way. It wants you to.
It's the hook. It's the hook.
It wants to hook you in, wants you to warm you up, and so you're having a good time to an extent while going over like facts that you couldn't believe or whatnot before it gets into the war and the fact that there's loss and there's people that are suffering. But that's not an unfair thing to do It just helps when you have a structure that can, support all of that. And the problem here, compared to something like Super Size Me, where I had issue with the fact that I feel like there's more questions than try to answer. This movie is you said maximalist. It's trying to answer a lot of things, and it ends up being like 3 different movies all pulled together. And I think,
like we had Control, which is just like,
it's
like
focused.
there's no push. It's just, this is life right now where we're at.
And even
So
then,
when you put
20 years ago, I felt that this was missing a very large segment of the story, which was the Christian nationalist, people. The idea that, beyond the let's make money from oil and weapons, it was these people are religious fanatics.
We get that a couple years later.
Rapture.
We get those a couple years later with Jesus Camp, honestly, because that George W. Bush and their worship of him features a bit in that movie.
Yeah.
So you saying this movie feels inconclusive is like, I could agree with that to a point. There's a scenario where Moore makes a follow-up that's not 11-9 over a decade later, but is instead like, coming into 08 or something, even though he's going to be voted out at that, if he's done at that point, he can't keep going. But there's more he could have done, yes, if he followed this up with something relatively sooner. But I mean, I get it, because he's trying to like work a thing in the same way that like Oliver Stone tried to do W and work that right come out. When did that come out? It's got like October,
October 2008, September, October,
Like he rushed specifically to get it out at that date. Like, so
well, it was like, that's why Borat 2 ended up on Amazon Prime, because I wanted to make sure it got out by the auction.
And that we even had I had forgotten about it for the longest time, but I saw something on social media. That's My Bush. We had a Comedy Central show that was a sitcom based on George W. Bush.
Well, that was in the first year when it was like, and the film in the early years, in the early going touches on this, but that for the first year, he was almost a failure on every level as a president, and they all knew it.
And the issue that we had was we kept like satirizing it in a way that made it too fun. Like Will Ferrell doing the Bush thing made Bush seem more fun. Like, as funny as Will Ferrell being Bush was, he made him relatable.
And that's, a lot of people, that's why, frankly, I like Alec Baldwin's Trump, is that he's a disgusting, unpleasant, horrific person who you don't want to spend time with. He is genuinely, that caricature is genuinely unpleasant to be on screen, to the point where he's revolting.
Yeah.
I think it's a bad performance, so that's a fair way to put it. Thank you for James
no, but you're right about that. The whole, it's in the 2000 election, it felt like David Letterman was the only talk show host that was actually treating him not just like a village idiot, but a dangerous village idiot. And of course, we would see this in 2016. Jimmy Fallon, for better or worse, got ripped for having Trump on and just having fun with them. And so much of that in the summer, 2015, 2016, whether we should criticize that or not, and I would say we should, but it was all done on the assumption that there's no way he's going to win, right?
Right, yeah.
I mean, even if he gets the nomination, he's going to get trounced in the general. And I do wonder if at least certain actors thought they actually had a shot in hell of winning if they would have made different choices. And maybe not. Because here we are again, and the media is doing the same damn thing. Because, they need the ratings of a horse race.
Brandon, I know you have a lot of ads that suggest this is a pro-Trump podcast, so I apologize that are not getting what they want out of this right now.
Yeah.
Buy your vitamins. They make your penis fresh.
The at the time we're recording this, the Haley money just dropped, so we had to switch choices. But yeah, I mean, this movie.
Brandon, you said a lot of devil's advocate stuff. Do you like this movie? Are you a fan?
I do. It's solid. And I just, I don't know. Like, it's very interesting, but I think it sort of peaks in the first act with like tying everything together, and then it has stuff to say in the second, but has to like embellish it. And I'm kind of like I like the work Moore does, but I'm kind of off put by him somewhat, like, if that makes sense.
Well, because you mentioned it, he's angry in this, and it
he's
shows.
angry.
Watch Where Do We Fade Next. he's very calm in that movie.
Yeah.
He's having frankly a great time. He's going to different countries, doing a cool globe truck.
I feel like with like Columbine though, like
there's a reason
he feels hungry and like he's going to make a change and he's going to make it. He really cares about it. And this, I think he cares more about the shock and like
the shock and awe,
the shock, the awe, and the publicity coming with it more than it's a thing where he can show all this, but he can't. I don't think he can enact the change that he wants to.
I think there's also sorry, go ahead.
I'll just say I don't think that's the wrong choice to make, though.
Yeah.
I wish there was a better result that came from that. Sure, but I don't think it's wrong for him to be in the position he is, where he's somehow become a blockbuster documentarian. One of the rarest accomplishments you can have. At that point in time, when there is a fervor out there of like, what's going on? Why are we here? This guy sucks. Like, how do you concentrate that into a cinematic event that's going to like bring people together? I don't think it's wrong for him to like try to capitalize on that in some way. I just wish the result was overall better than it was. But I also, like this movie. I mean, I do think it's effective enough. It just there's more it could have.
In terms of entertaining blockbusters, it's elite. Like it moves, it works.
And I'm not going to sit here and think that a documentary that made money is somehow going to sway an entire election. I just don't think that's realistic.
No, because the people who line up to go see it were the ones who didn't need. They were looking for self-reassurance.
The people that didn't want to see Barbie, didn't. Nothing changed about that. So
well, I think part of it is I agree with you. I think for a lot of people that went to see this, it was a way to assure themselves that they weren't crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where I'm saying it's the right choice to engage that audience, I guess.
Yeah. Who was that audience, Scott? Let's go to the box office for this week.
That audience? Holy shit! This film opened at number 1 with 20. Fuck, where does the
23.9 million?
No, sorry, I was looking at previews. I didn't realize it had previews. Wednesday and Thursday did around $158,000 in 2 screens prior to its opening weekend. It did 24 million and it's by the end of its first weekend, which was a record, beating Rocky 3 for the biggest opening weekend ever and under 1,000 screens. I think it still got that record, but don't quote me on that. I should look that up. It would leg out pretty well, actually. It would end up with 119 million domestic and 222 million worldwide on basically a $6 million budget. It would, and probably will always be for all time, the biggest grossing conventional documentary, unless you want to count the Jackass movies.
What March of the Penguins do?
It did, I think, 75. Let me look that up.
Oh, I thought that broke 100. I don't know why. I thought that
maybe worldwide. Oh, that would not surprise me if it did worldwide. Yeah, 127 worldwide, 77 domestic.
Okay.
But yeah, even that was a bonkers performance too. Relatively speaking.
People needed something good in their life. That was
right.
That film was so depressing. It's one of the reasons I don't believe in God. That movie basically turned me into an atheist. But I digress. Was that too much information?
A weird shot, yeah.
White Chicks, which actually opened on a Wednesday and would earn a total of $27 million in its first 5 days. Theoretically, had it opened on Friday, it would have topped the box office for the Friday weekend.
They were fear and Farenheit.
Sorry, what was that?
They're fearing the reason.
Oh, yes. It would open with 19 and change over the 3-day weekend, 27 total over Wednesday to Sunday. It would be a little I don't want to say a little front loaded because still it's 70 million domestic and 113 worldwide on a 37 budget. So again, money, yay! Back when smaller movies made big bucks.
Little man, green light, boom.
Yes. Coming in at number 3 was Dodgeball and Underdog Story, taking a minor 37% drop for a $19 million second weekend. It would earn $67 million by day 10 As noted last week, it would round out to 168 worldwide on a 20 budget. Again, these movies make money, damn it. Excuse me. I mean, in third place was The Notebook. Fourth place, The Notebook, which would open to $13.5 million and 2,303 screens. However, it would be very, very, very leggy. It would be one of the probably leggiest wide releases of the summer offhand. 81 million domestic and 118 million worldwide on a $29 million budget. And judging by the, I'm sorry, what was that?
The default date movie because
there's nothing like it.
No,
like this entire summer, there's nothing there. Like,
and this is unfortunately during a time where we start seeing summers that were so male franchise driven that there was like one court-appointed movie for quote-unquote grown-ups. Not so much this summer because you get more grown-up stuff toward the back half, but one quote-unquote court-appointed movie for women, and in this case that was The Notebook, not The Stepford Wives. Criminal would earn 13 million in weekend 2, dropping 31% for 41 million after 10 days. It would leg out to a pretty decent $219 million worldwide on a $60 million budget. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban would earn $11 million in its fourth weekend, dropping 37% for a $211.5 million 24-day total. It would leg out to 249 million domestic and 795 worldwide, still being by default the lowest grossing of the original Harry Potter pictures.
Shameful.
Yeah, tragic.
Say it with me, Scott. Can this franchise be saved?
Yes, you beat me to it, but yes. Spoiler, it would be. Shrek 2, 10 million in weekend 6, dropping 26%. It's still the family movie of choice. Sorry, Garfield. Earning $397 million after day 38 because it opened on a Wednesday. It would top out at 441 domestic and 930 worldwide. Weirdly enough, it's one of the few mega movies of like the 2000s that's never been re-released in any capacity.
That is funny because they show like other DreamWorks stuff all the time.
Yeah. You think they'd like, well, it's 70 million's a long way to go, but theoretically you get it to $1 billion. Garfield the movie, 7.5 minus 34% for 56 million after 10 days. It would earn 203 million worldwide on a 50 budget. Two Brothers, the last of our 4 wide releases this weekend, would earn $6.4 million on 2,175 screens. It would top out at 19 million domestic, 62 million worldwide. I do not have the budget offhand. Let me see if I can find that. Oh, 42 million. So that was not a hit in theaters.
No.
Oh, well. And finally, in the top 10, you've got the Stepford Wives earning 5 million in its third weekend, dropping 42% for a $49 million total. It would top out at 103 million worldwide on a 90 budget. Horrible flop. Excuse me. Let's see if there's anything else worth.
I was looking. There's not really much word notable.
NASCAR, the IMAX experience in weekend 16, making $267,000.
All right.
Who narrates that one? Let's see. NASCAR, the IMAX experience.
Barry Pepper. Remember he played Dale Earnhardt in that ESPN movie?
Kiefer. It's Kiefer.
Kiefer. Oh, all right.
Look at that.
He's being phone booth and he's got NASCAR. He's got
Not to be outdone, Space Station 3D, narrated by Tom Cruise, is earning approximately $108,000 in 16 screens in its 115th week of release.
Cool.
Gotcha.
I always like the box office list because it'd be like also Space Station, which has been out for years.
Well, speaking of which, I always like throwing out this trivia tidbit because it amuses me. The biggest grossing movie domestically during Titanic's initial 1998 reign of terror was Everest IMAX, narrated, I believe, by Liam Neeson, which would make 87 million domestic and 128 worldwide.
Okay. So yeah, this puts us at the center of the summer of 2004. So halfway through, thoughts looking ahead now to July and August. Got a lot of the big titles I've been looking forward to coming.
There's a lot of good movies that I know I'm gonna watch.
A lot of some funny
this is
shit.
Not a front-loaded summer at all.
Yeah. No, they're holding the best.
A lot of debates I know that are going to come up as well. So
there we go. Yeah, very true. Very true. So very excited to get to the back half of this.
The clearing.
Oh yeah. So
also Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, so that'll do it for this week. Be sure to check out the Patreon if you've still a Patreon, if you know that exists or whatever. Look it up. Donate. Aaron needs to eat sometimes.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have kids. He can scrounge for trash.
Yeah.
I take food out of Scott's children's mouths. That's my agenda.
And he posted on TikTok. All right. So Scott, where can people keep up with you in the meantime?
I write for Puck News on a weekly basis as part of their Sunday night newsletter. I maintain yada yada yada, the Outside Scoop, which is a Substack. It is subscription driven with the periodic ads here and there, and that's my main home base.
Gotcha.
Sign up, subscribe.
Is that yada 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 colon the Outside Scoop?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Aaron.
You can find everything I do at the time of this release. It is now converted into a Substack. The code is zeke.substack.com. Everything I do ends up over there. And it's entirely free. So, I got that going for me. I host a podcast called Out Now with Aaron and Abe with my friend Abe. We talk about the weekly movie releases, and we have a lot of fun commentary tracks. And we're, of course, in the throes of our summer movie gamble, which is very, very important. And yeah, movie reviews over We Live Entertainment, Blu reviews at Wise to Blue, and I'm on all the socials at Aaron's PS4.
All right, I'm on social media at Brandon Porky HD. Please, you can sign up for the Louisville PopCon live podcast stage, which I am the host of, and I will program you in there, and you can have a live recording of your show in front of a studio audience. It's a lot of fun. Come out and see, or just say hi. That's August 24th to 26th. More information at popcon.us. Next week, we clear ourselves before sunset as we have a lovely discussion about the web slinger who captured the America's heart and soul in the summer of 2004. All this and more as the summer of 2004 at 20 continues.
The summer